Want me to open it like the top of it? Welcome to Telling the Show.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah. Which episode are we on now?
5.
Yeah, your script says episode 3, so, proofreading you.
That is a copy editor's job, not mine.
Wow, you're going to be like that.
That's right.
So, as you can tell already for our, to our listeners, that this is a different kind of podcast, and, we have this kind of sibling rivalry now between me and Denise, especially since I'm down by 1 on the logline Thunderdome that we normally have.
And it's we're not doing it today, but it's not because I'm a sore loser.
We tied last time. You're still up by 1.
You're creeping up, and I can't take that kind of competition. No, I'm joking.
Wow, you want to be like that? Fine. Our listeners may notice that we're not video intensive this time because we're going to be hyper focused. And right. What do we have on deck today, Denise?
We're going to do something that I don't think anybody's ever done before. We're going to highlight the value of collaboration. And by the end of the episode, we will have created a beat sheet for a brand new story.
And you hit it on the head when you said collaboration, because that's the name of the game with this. One of the things that when you go through learning screenwriting, you can learn all the formatting, you can learn all of the storytelling tricks, all the dramaturgy you want, but learning how to work with another person. I mean, working with others when it comes to getting notes from producers or executives and rewriting based on that, that's a whole different paradigm. When you're in the trenches of actually writing, working with a writing partner, that's one of those things that is almost like, I heard it said once from a screenwriter, I forget who, but it's a lot like a marriage, and you have to, this partnership is very much about, it's going to be about mutual respect and compromise. We're going to get to all the lists of, the qualities for that, but it takes that much and that kind of teamwork and a lot of trust and honesty to go through this. I mean, how do we define collaboration, Denise?
I just posted it up there. So collaboration, according to the Oxford Dictionary, my preferred dictionary, defines collaboration as the action of working with someone to produce or create something.
Oxford Dictionary, your preferred dictionary. So it's like your Bible, or?
No, I just, over the Merriam-Webster, I always go with Oxford.
Oh, so we're going to be like that now.
Yeah.
We're going to be very specific about what kind of dictionary we like, while I sound like John Houseman. Okay. Okay, so since Oxford defines collaboration that way, I mean, let's remember that Oxford also defines collaboration as traitorous cooperation with an enemy.
And I love that, but let's do the first one.
Yeah, I was going to say traitorous, if I could speak, traitorous cooperation with an enemy. We don't want to mess with that. Sorry.
I just think it's very, I don't know, when I read that, I was like, it's very Hamilton, but let's not...
Yeah, and that would definitely be your vibe, to have that perspective on it. That's really cool. Yeah. So, okay, so we're going to do the first one. Great. Yes. That works. So, and plenty of movies are written by teams. I mean, I'm not talking about like the Flintstones where it had 8 writers or something ridiculous credited, where it's almost like a writer's room to create it,
right?
Which was by definition, that's how they came to the movie they made. But some other scripts, Denise, can you name a couple?
Yes. So I started with this list more recent, and then I worked backwards. So sure. Captain Marvel, definitely. Terminator: Dark Fate, which was, I guess, the last one. Onward, and actually most of the Pixar, DreamWorks animated features are all going to have multiple writers or a writing team. Blazing Saddles, one of my favorite movies, and Monty Python's The Life of Brian. Of course, because Monty Python wrote it as a team.
I'm going to add to this list a little bit. One of my
Yes.
favorite writing teams ever is Lowell Gans and Bob Lou Mandel, because these guys wrote heartfelt, funny movies like Night Shift and Where the Heart Is or Parenthood. And, I mean, just they came from the Happy Days writers' room. And so a lot of movies that they were writing were for a lot of the alumni, which makes sense because Night Shift had Henry Winkler starring
Right.
and Ron Howard directing. And honestly, I haven't seen a movie that they wrote that I haven't liked in some way. So,
Yeah, I feel like there's I've been watching the new season of the movies that made us,
mhm.
and there's just, maybe because it's what I grew up with, but there's just something missing from many of the movies that I've seen lately that was definitely there. There was like that sense of wonder, and like each movie you saw, even if it was formula, there was something new to it. Um, like Back to the Future, we've never had anything like Back to the Future since Back to the Future.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, I feel like maybe there's, I don't know, an upsweep coming of new work, hopefully soon.
And honestly, I think that comes down to a loss. Comes down to a loss of. I mean, I think there needs to be more heartfelt films made and the room to make that. And there's a whole other discussion as to how that's going to really be allowed. But I think that's always going to be there among writers as to their attempt. And as well as I do, the sacrifices that are made along the way of writing a screenplay, just getting it to a stage where somebody's going to want to make it.
Yeah.
But the confidence in the story has to be there first and foremost, right? So, I mean, I'm thinking like same era as Back to the Future, 1 year prior, Ghostbusters. You had Dan Aykroyd
Yeah.
and Harold Ramis as a writing team. And Dan Aykroyd had all this knowledge, all this wealth of paranormal research from his native country, and it's in his it's in his family background. And Harold Ramis really brought in some of the I think they both brought in the jokes because they're both trained comedians, but they also brought in a sense of like I think Harold Ramis had a great sense of calibration of story. From everything that I've seen in the interviews with Dan Aykroyd and with some of the people who made Ghostbusters, including Ivan Reitman. And I'm hoping for the new one that there's even more of that. The one thing that I think has been missing from anything that's been made of Ghostbusters since the first one is maybe going deeper to understanding all the jargon
Right.
that they were throwing out left and right. But because all of that jargon I'm interested in, but also you'd need an audience identifier like a Peter Venkman to do that, to be like, oh,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah. And one thing that interests me from what I've seen and read about the new version is how like this was the grandfather that they didn't really talk to. He wasn't really in the picture. He was weird, and he left in this house that has Echo One, and it was. I think that's like a really interesting part of the story and a really interesting way to play it, because he was such a hero to people that saw the first movie,
Oh,
and
yeah.
now he's going to be like, maybe somebody that went a little crazy, or something happened to him. I don't know. I'm excited. It's on my watch list.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, honestly, it's part of my childhood as much as it is
Yep.
Jason Reitman's childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, but we're talking about a filmmaker there who has gone off and made great movies and wrote great movies like Thank You for Smoking.
Yeah.
Which I thought that movie to me was such a good screenplay. I actually own a copy of the published screenplay in my library.
Wow.
Because I thought it was that solid a movie. You cared about the characters. It was funny. Plus, if you want a good study of double talk in a movie, if you have characters like that, that's a great movie to go from for that.
Yeah.
So, but speaking of, great partnerships, going back to that subject. So qualities to look for in a great writing partner. We talked about truth, honesty between each other, mutual respect, where, if you can work with someone and you can tell them, no, and you don't take offense to the idea, oh, that's a shitty idea. Or you create a room where you can say shitty ideas and just get them out of the way and get to the good stuff, because you both will have to understand there's going to be a lot of dirt.
Yeah,
And
and I think you bring to it your personal experiences, and I, I mean, for me, when I've had writing partners, um, we do not have the same background. We come from completely different perspectives, and that made our writing stronger because there was more breadth to it. Um, so I don't actually look for somebody that has the same background. I go for the difference because I want that different point of view. Um, but I mean, that might not work for you. You have to actually know yourself and what kind of writer you are to know what you're missing so that you look for that in a partner.
exactly. And you can't be afraid to, up front tell them, okay, I'm a little bit of a sensitive one, but I got to work on
Yeah.
that. I'm going to make sure it's not going to get in the way,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And I feel like it's, you almost have to treat it like you're in a corporate job. And plenty of our listeners out there kind of might just understand what that means, because if you're smart and you want to keep your job, I mean, if you value what you have, whether it's a partnership, a job, or a marriage, anything like that, you're going to be honest, but you're also going to have the temerity to, check yourself. You can't control anybody else, but you can control yourself.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. So when we go into this, like if we're going to set up some rules and stuff like that,
Yes.
main thing, my promise to you on this is that I'm not going to treat any idea of yours like like it doesn't have any value, because every idea might have value, no matter how crazy it sounds.
Why do you put crazy when it's my idea? I'm just joking.
Because I'm waiting for you to say mine's insane. I'm setting you up here. I'm always going to.
I know. You're setting me up.
It's like
I
that
think
volleyball match from Top Gun. I'm setting you up. You got a spike.
I know. What did I just see with volleyball? Oh, that was Big Mouth, an episode of Big Mouth. And they did
Oh.
a mini Top Gun volleyball match. It was hilarious.
Which is kind of this mental image that I'm trying to still wash out of my brain. When I watch that movie, I skip to just all the aerial combat, because that's just me.
You know, there's a second volleyball one in Maverick. So
Yeah, but you get Miles Teller. I'm just saying there better be some damn good aerial combat in this movie. But I want to know how they shot some of those cockpit scenes, because if I know what I know of Joseph Kosinski's work, whether we're talking about Tron Legacy or Oblivion, he's got an eye. He's got a seriously good filmmaker's eye. So it'll be interesting to see how he does what he does and what he contributes to that lexicon of what Top Gun is.
the one shot where Tom Cruise is taken off from the aircraft carrier and you see the carrier shrink in the distance behind him.
Yes,
Oh,
that shot
gives me chills every time.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just bought a new home theater system recently, and the first thing you crank up in home theater is Top Gun, because you want that opening 5 minutes to feel and to test out the system, of course, but really just let's call it what it is, to get a cheap thrill. And it's ironic we're talking about Top Gun, because that's another partnership, Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr., who wrote that movie. They were credited for that movie, and not credited for doing a little rewriting work on Batman from 1989, from what I understand. So.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Consequently, they wrote and got credited for Dick Tracy the next summer. Well, nobody knows anything in Hollywood. You never know how things are going to turn out. So
I actually like Dick Tracy, but I like it because it's like glitzy, glammy musical, and I'm a Madonna fan, or I was a Madonna fan. So
See, I wanted to, but to me, to me, there's a commonality in the movies that I like that are of an action-oriented nature, like Batman or The Crow or RoboCop, where even if they have some fantastic or science fiction element to them, the idea of the vengeance versus justice, that interests me in a great deal.
Absolutely. So, should we agree that we're gonna try and beat out a action movie?
We can try an action movie. How comfortable do you feel about it?
Let's give it a go. It's not my genre, but I'm willing to give it a try.
Okay. All right. So we know we're doing an action movie, and we know we have 3 acts. That's just standard Aristotelian structure, right?
Yes.
And I'm very proud of myself for pronouncing that correctly.
Good for you, because I wouldn't have done it right.
That's why I'm using my radio voice. Anyway.
Should we let's protagonist, antagonist, male or female?
I definitely want a female protagonist, and not just because that's a trend, but just because I think we could do some. There's room to explore that with a character that's female, and not because she's female, but because if we get the character right, there's a lot of dynamic nature to that.
Cool. Sold. And antagonist, male or female?
Good question.
Yeah.
Either way is a cliche. I think it's going to come down to character.
Right. It could go either way, you know?
Yeah, it
Like,
could go. Well, we don't want it to be one of those where we make someone who is non-binary a villain. I refuse to
right.
do that for just reasons of respect. So we'll just find out. It depends upon the plot. Right now, I'll say a default mechanism, male, and we just adjust as we go.
Sure.
Okay. Do we want to time this?
Yep. Are we ready to
I hope
start
so.
timing? Okay. So in case you're wondering how this is going to work, I'm going to lay it to you first. You could start. So Chris will, call out a beat and describe it, and then I will follow it up, and we'll go back and forth until we have our 15 beats for Act 1. And I am going to start my timer now. 10 minutes.
All right. We have an apartment in a city, and our protagonist is awakened by an explosion that throws her through the window of her apartment.
Holy crap.
Hey, it's an action movie. You got to do something.
It is an action movie.
You better grab quick.
So obviously she wants to go find out what the explosion is, and she realizes that it's
because the trick is we need to know who she is. Let's because so we need a second with the character, and we probably should have taken some time to talk about the character in Logland before this. That's usually how it goes. But if you just got some beats, throw them together and some scenes.
Yeah. So I think she's actually maybe either a private detective, or I wouldn't say a police officer. I'd say she's somebody that wanted to go into some sort of protection, but couldn't make it for some reason.
That's not bad. Could we make her an insurance adjuster that works for like a very shady organization?
Sure.
A mob or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then it gives her somewhere to go.
Right.
Yeah.
She's got somebody with some, if we're talking about character flaws, maybe she's got like a mountain of debt from businesses that have failed because she can't get her stuff together as a business person, but she can judge everybody else. That could be a major character flaw, and a benefit because she has an eye for certain details and mistakes. That sort of thing could go that way.
Yeah, I like it. I think so knowing this about her now, I think she would wake up, see where the explosion came from.
Mm-hmm.
And then, she grabs her trusty messenger bag full of tools and gadgets and whatnot,
mm-hmm.
and heads out the door.
Well, okay. Remember, the explosion threw her from her apartment. So she's probably going to want to find out, okay, what's going on. Maybe in the aftermath, we've got EMTs called out and stuff like that. And as she's looking around, cops are trying to tell her stay back, but if she's that kind of an insurance adjuster, or insurance adjuster sounds pretty boring. We could always make her like an up and coming camera person for an investigative reporter, and that investigative reporter's gone missing, right? So that's a way to go. And
how do we know that reporter is missing?
We don't. So
here we go. Wait, let's backtrack. Let's do it with the investigative reporter. Okay. She wakes up to a text that says, "I'm in trouble." Then the explosion.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go from there.
She's thrown from a window from her apartment. I'm still stuck on that as an image because that could be just cool because it's been done, but there's always going to be new wrinkles on that when you get to the filmmaking stage. So, okay. So we know, we find out who she is through the course of, cops have shown up. They're trying to figure out what's going on. So, and if we've made her a cameraman, that means that she's seen something she's not supposed to because the reporter's missing. They are investigative, investigative reporting team, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So a camera person's got to have an eye, right? So they got to have an eye for detail, notice things, go for it, find out. So she finds something. What does she find in like the wreckage that that everybody's overlooking? Some tiny little detail, right? That's going to lead her to the next thing.
I'm gonna say it's like a keychain or something, some sort of keychain or like a poker chip or something small that's completely overlooked.
Okay. Here, how about this as a thought? It's a destroyed cell phone.
Okay.
Like it's kind of destroyed, but it's enough to know that it wouldn't have been the phone that the missing reporter had, or maybe it could have been. Maybe that was the trigger, or she finds out that it was the bomb trigger. So later down the
No,
beat.
actually, if it's the phone and it was the guy that texted her, I think that gives us a good place to go.
Okay, that gives us more room. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. All right. So so she's got to get checked out in the hospital. How she survives this is kind of like a bit of a stretch. So we really got to let her like survive that before returning to work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if she would go get checked out. I think, if this is somebody that maybe if it was just a colleague, I think she'd probably go to the hospital. If it was somebody she actually cared about, I think she would forego that and get right on the case.
If that's the case, maybe there's a relationship with the reporter. We'd have to establish that some way.
Well, flashbacks are the key.
Well, flashbacks can be lazy storytelling, right? So we got to be careful about that. So maybe we learned that when she, instead of going to the hospital to get checked out, I mean, maybe her and this reporter have been through like war zones together, and we find that out when she goes into the news desk station. She is news now. She's in front of the camera because everybody's looking for her to talk about what's going on here because everybody's chasing that story. She shoots the story. Now she is the story.
Right.
So she's having to avoid a lot of people along the way to get to, some people to get to the news desk and stuff like that. She's going straight to there, grabs her clothes because she's probably got a stash at her desk or whatever, or in the van she uses. And goes straight to the news station. The news editor is probably like, what the hell are you doing here? We get a tiny bit of backstory, that sort of thing. I don't know. How many beats do we have? Because I think we're over 10 minutes at this point.
we have 3 minutes left. I think she should show up to the news station like not changed. You know what I mean? She's got her messenger bag and she's got like blood on her clothes.
Right. And in that time, the police have found out that there was a trigger to the bomb someplace close by. Like maybe she got a piece of that phone, and maybe that phone was actually the trigger for the bomb. Why would she set off her own bomb? But she wants, they want to question her, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now the trick is that, or no, that doesn't work because that goes right into fugitives territory, and that's kind of been done. What do you think? Maybe the phone isn't destroyed, but whoever's got the reporter and set up that bomb calls her?
Yeah, I think the text can actually work because if it's this guy that we will hopefully have a relationship with, if they're both like investigative reporters and he goes missing, she would definitely jump up at that text saying, "I'm in trouble." And then the explosion, your mind immediately says like, "Oh my God, that's what happened." But then maybe it's not related at all.
It might not be. It's just as plausible to see that she's woken up by a FaceTime call because that's more visual anyway.
Right.
And she sees the reporter in trouble. It's like we could have dialogue where she says, "Look, I kicked you out last night. I am not looking for an apology." That could set up their relationship as more than just professional. But then, in the midst of like a quick heated argument, and we're going back over to the all the previous beats, I know, but
It
then
sets up a good foundation.
exactly, we got to make sure the act one's pretty well set. But as we're running out of time, they have the heated argument, but whoever's got the captor, who you don't see on screen, it is like they want something. They announce that they want something. Maybe it's a tape or something, or like an SD card, whatever they're recording on ENG cameras nowadays. But they want a recording, right?
Yes.
Okay. And she's like, "What recording?" And I've got a reason for that. I've got a reason for that we can use later as an act 2 or act 3 kind of a thing. But when she says what recording, that's when the explosion happens. So all that's got her prompted to like find out, okay, who's got this person that I have some sort of relationship with, that I do care, that she does care about, and is prompted to go straight to the news station to find out what's going on, trying to find a recording. Okay, but then somebody shows up trying to find her, also who wants this MacGuffin, this SD card. And of course, news editors, probably there's a quick argument until that person shows up claiming to be someone who's investigating the explosion. It's like, maybe we should take you to the hospital. When she refuses, he's trying to like drag her off and, trying to coerce her to get out of that SD card. Maybe there's a struggle and she accidentally kills this guy and finds out, this might be, someone involved with, so some visual clue that this guy belongs to some sort of, the same group of captors.
Yeah. And that's actually a really good point to end Act 1, because it puts her in a different direction than she started in.
Exactly. Everything's got to do that from moment to moment in an action script. And something to point out also in action scripts, like we may be saying 15 beats, but your page count is going to be like, for action movies, if you want to keep the pace moving, what I've been advised, and this doesn't always mean it, that you don't want to like, clock pages. You want to get a story down. But 18 to 19, max 20 pages. That's it. You hear about the 30, 60, 30 rule in terms of page count. That's just, standard formatting. For action movies, shorter.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Maybe I should write action movies.
You would think that would be short enough to do it. It's like, it really should be as long as it needs to be to get your story down. Even if and if you don't have 15 beats, go back and, put in the details that make sense. That's the key. It shouldn't necessarily be a number so much as have enough beats to keep your story going along. I think that's the goal, right?
Yes, that is the goal. So Act 1, hooray, we're done. Woo!
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to see another 10 minutes. This is going to be a hard one.
It's going to be hard because Act 2 is double the length of Act 1, right? It's double the amount of information that you need to continue the story, because this is where the story really is, right? So, because we spent some time exploring who the hell this lady is,
right,
and why she had this relationship,
So I will add another 5 minutes. So we'll do it 15.
Okay, 15. We can do that.
All right. Cool. We ready?
We're ready.
All right. All right. So when we last left our protagonist, she did something to one of these guys, and she feels like she killed him, or, in some way. And she's going off in a different direction, because now she's like, oh shit. Oh, well, I shouldn't curse. Oh, darn.
I think it's okay. Honestly, if it's either coast F-bombs or a plenty most of the time in this kind of work, but
she's like, I hurt this guy. Now they're going to be after me. Now the police are going to be after me too.
Well, okay. So the question is, this is a chance to reveal character. Are we talking about, is she going to call it in, or is she going to stop, or is something else going to come? Like maybe this guy didn't come alone, and so this sets off a sort of a chase, right?
Yeah, I think she would not call it in, because why is she there in the first place? I mean,
Well, or she gets another FaceTime call and again sees the captor, but this time her reporter boyfriend is like looking worse for wear, like he's been cut up, beat up, and maybe he's been set up to like bleed out his last blood, literally slowly. Unless she can get to him in enough time, he's gonna be like his blood is all gonna be all over the floor. So she really needs to find that SD card and get it to him. So now we have a ticking clock, right?
yes, I like the
That would
ticking
really be
clock.
our jump into Act
Mm-hmm.
Two.
Yep.
So it becomes a search for her and a chase because everybody's going to be prodding her to go along to find this thing, whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
Right, exactly. So what do we reveal about her? It's like she is the story rather than becoming the story. And we can use that to our advantage later, I think. So it would help if we knew what the SD card had on it and who stands to not gain from it. Something we could establish an Act Two. Are we talking? Is this political intrigue, or is it someone who doesn't want something revealed, which is very vague? What do you think?
Well, I mean, let's not do politics because politics.
I know everyone's like whatever about politics now. I don't blame them.
Let's do. So she's gonna go get the SD card, or maybe she goes to her boyfriend's place and she's gonna tear it apart. She realizes that it's already been torn apart, but she actually, I think it would be really cool if she took a moment and sat down and thought like him. It's like she does know him, and she finds it, I don't know, some weird place, like underneath the can of shaving cream or something in the shower. You know what I mean?
Yeah, some hidden place. Yeah, I'd like that. I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
And then, so she finds the card. I don't think she would play it right there. I think she would go to someone she trusts. And that could be someone at the news agency, or it could be someone else.
Well, again, we have to, with action, there's always danger and conflict. So we got to make sure that, as soon as she finds it is, someone always finding her to grab it from her. I mean, this guy could be prodding her to find it, but then wanting to keep her hand and keep it, his hands clean or absolve himself of, having to deal with, someone flaking out and not getting the SD card. So he could be sending anybody he works with to either get rid of her as soon as she finds it. So that's one thing. But if she can escape that and keep moving on, then she can get to something like you're talking about, like going to someone she trusts. Like,
yeah.
Something I liked about the movie The Negotiator is that the nice twist is he calls in a negotiator from another precinct to negotiate his hostage situation. So what if, she's going to a competitor who has no stake in this? Now, again, I don't know that would work because if everyone, if everyone wants her story and she doesn't want to be a story, is she going to want to go to someone like this? And the question would be why?
I think she should go to, I think actually she would go to her competition. You know what I mean? Because that actually sets up something about her that she would admit to needing help.
Right.
And then, I mean, there's something there you can play with.
We'd have to set up that competitor in the first act as well. So there should be some beats regarding them, some kind of rivalry or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, if she's becoming the news, that could be the person that stops her and talks to her.
Right. Absolutely.
Easy peasy. So I think so. She's escaping the apartment of the boyfriend and she's got this thing and she's like, there's no one I can trust. Who do I trust? So I know these guys are after me. So I'm going to go to the one place they can't go. And that's to whoever this competitor is.
Right. And if she goes to a busy newsroom where everybody's running around at all hours of the day, then it's a place of relative safety because, there's a lot of people around. So that's one thing. So at what point do we introduce a law enforcement element? and it's a cliche to have someone fake a police thing. I think it's just somebody who, has a technical prowess and is trying to use it in some way. But I got an interesting twist idea for the midpoint.
Okay.
Let me see what you think of this. It's not that there was a recording on the SD. It's that, and this would have to be also set up in the first act. Like, what was the story that they were investigating, right? And I'm gonna throw in some headline news here that's kind of old. But have you heard about Gamergate? How?
No.
Oh, well, long ago. It wasn't all that long ago. It still happens all the time. There was a lot of news about how in gamer circles, at gamer companies and gamer online boards, that there was a lot of hate towards women who were gamers, that sort of thing. And that's what that was about. And in high tech, there's a lot of, hatred towards, women, unfortunately.
Yes.
And still is, sadly. So my thought process is this SD card isn't a recording at all, but some sort of virus that these two are actually being prodded into. Because once she gets it somewhere where she's being driven to at the midpoint, where she thinks she's going to solve this thing and get her reporter boyfriend back, it was actually just to set off a virus that destabilizes major city systems. So she's being an unwitting pawn in a larger scheme to have a city under siege.
But what would that have to do with what you were telling me?
In terms of the story?
Yeah, so like the Gamergate thing, if that's because actually I think that's kind of cool. If that was like, I don't know, proof of that.
Well, and I think that goes back to the story that they were investigating. Maybe they were investigating some shady goings on at this high-tech startup. We'll just say that it's a high-tech startup for now, and I know that's vague, but we can work from there. And the high-tech startup, it was, the head of their organization was being made out to be this Mark Zuckerberg type where, people don't really like him or don't really trust him. They think that, he says he's going to revolutionize things, but there's been a lot of, bad press, a lot of misinformation out there. And maybe he really isn't the bad guy, but somebody among his group that actually created the tech that he's evangelizing is behind all this. And if that ever got to light, then they would be embarrassed, but also they want control. What they're talking about is revolutionizing, city public works with this high-tech platform.
Okay, I see where you're going. Okay.
And so it's all misdirection with the idea of using this girl as a pawn. And maybe they were onto something, found out something, and there might have been a recording, but it was never about the recording, because by the time they set up this high tech sets up some sort of disaster and comes in to look like a hero because we have the cure for the antidote to the virus. We talk about computer viruses as a gimmick or a MacGuffin and screenwriting stories all the time for action or sci-fi, but we never talk about what's the antidote. No one ever uses the word antidote, the counteracting of a virus. And so maybe one's being held up to make themselves look good, but they want to create that chaos because they're trying to drive the numbers up and sell their, what they can do to the highest bidder of any city government, infrastructure system.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's a potential concept. Doesn't mean it's actually going to work. And then explaining all that is going to be all along the way. So, but maybe the character portion of it is this: she's a cameraman. Cub cameraman, maybe she's just come into it. She's earned her spurs a little bit, but no one, really thinks of her highly just yet. But she herself wants to go into investigative reporting. It's rare to see camera people go into the reporting end. So maybe it's going to take all the skills she's kind of learning from her reporter boyfriend to get to the story.
And her first story that she found and stumbled upon is this huge thing
where she's the pawn.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. So we have a midpoint that we can maybe make work, but now it's all about now she's really on the run because that she's going to be targeted. They think that she's going to be the person. She's going to, something's going to have to make her run. And law enforcement thinks she's the one who deliver the virus. So
Yeah, and I think that's, even though the reporter that she went to knows the truth,
mhm.
um, I don't think she would be the one to put that notice out there, but I think it would be out there somewhere. The police, because the company that, whoever's behind this chip and the
The virus, yeah,
virus, thank you,
and their
and the
antidote.
virus, yes, has put her picture out there saying like, this is the person that's behind it. So now like everybody's after her, like
Hmm.
very John Wick style. Everybody sees her. Um,
And maybe we want a failure at the end of Act Two that's going
yeah,
to bring her really down. Like right now, there's still this ticking clock, and her reporter boyfriend's going to die. He's been like slowly bleeding blood. She can actually see it. She keeps getting incessant calls from
right.
the guy involved. Um, and so it's like she's failed. She's been caught. She's arrested. She's stuck in there. We don't have to do the cliched interrogation scene, but just she keeps they keep getting the calls. But once she's caught, she's not getting the calls, but she can see a clock winding down somehow, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a deadline, and the it's getting close to like 30 seconds in, and maybe the clock winds down while she's in jail, and she's like, he's dead anyway, right? So,
But what would she do?
well, so she'd probably be in a morose state and saying, "This is, this is what's going on." You know, she would have tried to call this guy back at some point. Maybe she had several times and not, but um, what? Yeah, we need something that's going to jump her into Act Three.
Yeah.
So if she thinks her her boyfriend's dead, it's going to be like, and she's caught, and everyone thinks she did the SD card. We need some detail in Act Two that gives her a slight little bit of an edge, right? And that involves probably her competition, who,
There you go. So she gets the timer. The timer runs down. She's in
mm,
that dark place. She gets another text message from her competition who's now there to help her. And that's where they find out about the um, antidote.
right? So if anything, maybe that competition's like hit the wisecracking sidekick was with her at the moment and has a recording that clears her name, but still doesn't, that gets her out of jail, but that still doesn't resolve, who the guy is and how they can
Right.
find him, and so she's having to explain to the police, okay, we got to be able to find her. Well, they still don't have, there's a virus destabilizing things all over the city. They don't need her, but she's like, okay, how do I figure this out? Where do I find the source of the call? How do I find the source of the call? The first chase was to get the SD card because that was going to save her boyfriend's life. Now she's out to get this guy some way. She's not going to be like gun-toting Dirty Harry, but she's going to want to expose this guy because she killed her boyfriend. And maybe he's still alive. We'll figure that out in Act Three, right? Because it sounds like we're into Act Three now. How much time do we have yet?
We have 21 seconds.
Okay, so I think we can go into Act Three. How do you feel?
Right?
Should we let the clock wind down and get ready for Act Three?
Yeah. Yeah. We got to hose up.
I'm going to ask one question real quick because I tend to dominate the conversation, and that's something I know about myself that I need to check myself on. How are you feeling so far in this collaboration? Do you feel I'm giving you enough room?
Absolutely. I mean, and when we do these collaborative things, when I write with other writing partners, I'm like, we get written into a corner, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm usually the person that's like, okay, here's how we're going to get out of the corner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm supportive. Or if it's my project that I'm spearheading and I've brought people on with me, I'm a little different. But,
Well, because you have a central vision at that point.
yeah,
You're like, what you got to do has to support that, which makes sense because I've been on the other side of that. So
right.
having a vision and then supporting someone else's vision, which is
Right.
tricky.
And having that flexibility, you know what I mean? Like, if you can explain it to me, sure, that's great. I'll take it and we'll go with it. And if it doesn't work, it's not written in stone. You
Mm-hmm.
can always change it. So, you know.
Exactly. And 9 times out of 10, not every idea is going to work. There's going to be some
Right.
corner you're going to paint yourself in. So that just requires, working that out. But the main thing is, because if we're talking about honesty and mutual respect, it's also about, making sure that I check my personality against, the partnership. So that's one of those things I'm trying to make sure of, because we've never done this before, you and I.
No, nope, never.
So this will be interesting, because this is just conversation and spitballing. It's not like
Right.
we're going to end up with the perfect summer action movie out of this. But
Well, I mean, we could.
we might. It's possible. It's possible. I don't want to be a doubting Thomas, but you almost have to be.
Right. Yeah. The odds
So
are
how would
stacked against us.
well, that's usually how it works.
So okay, let's wrap it up. Act 3.
Act 3.
Goal is 10 to 15 beats.
If we're sticking with number, the main thing is we got to have a rising action, a climax, and a denouement. That's just standard story structure, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and something we haven't addressed is how the character gets revealed along this, but we're just coming up with, where the character is going to go and what they're going to do. We'll figure that out like in the next layer, right?
Yeah, I think that would be yes. I'm
Okay.
adding rising action to my little thing here. Okay. I got it. Nope. We don't want that.
Okay, just for those of you playing the home game and watching this, she's working with the technology that presents you with our podcast. She's not taking notes. She's not a first-time screenwriter by any means. This is one experienced lady. I'm going to tell you that.
Well, okay. We got it. Okay.
Oh, I see. There it is. Rising action.
There we go.
Okay, rising action. Okay, so we have emotional stakes for the characters. So that's something that works for us. Someone she cares about, she thinks is dead because the clock has run out. She has no proof of that, and there's chaos all around her. So she's got a wisecracking sidekick, and she's like, and he comes up with the idea. I was like, well, maybe we find out where this son of a bitch is, and we do something about this. If we can't.
Right.
We can't bring the reporter back, but we can nail the son of a bitch who did it and end all this and maybe get some justice, that sort of thing. Right.
Yeah. I think the thing that the antagonist would be most scared of is exposure.
Exactly. Because he's probably hired some people to do this.
Right.
So that would be like the first thing they find out at the top of Act 3, that, they find some way to trace the source. They have some information along Act 2 that gets them to that point. Right.
Yeah.
So they get to, and this is all vague stuff. When you're first starting out with a story, you're just coming up with some generic ones. You're going to fill in a few details later because you're going to have to, and if you want to make this work. Right. So, so that's why these terms are vague at the moment. But so you've got, you find out that the people that actually, were, kidnapping, or kidnapped and, were torturing this poor reporter, weren't, the actual people. So there's a little bit of something we got to figure out here, is like, how is she going to deal with, rescuing when she's going to find out that the reporter is alive. I think that would make sense, right? Or do you want the reporter to be dead when she finds her?
Well, no. I mean, depends on which brain I'm writing from. Happy ending brain or not happy ending brain.
Maybe he's just, he's not quite dead yet, because maybe he has some information to offer.
I mean, what if perhaps she was always somebody that needed to be with someone, which is really easy to write in.
Mm-hmm.
She was always dependent on other people. And if he dies, she learns that she can actually stand on her own.
Okay, so that's one character thing, and that tracks, because screenwriting is all about, almost like, if you want to do a mathematical analogy, balanced equations. If you set it up somewhere else, you've got to have a payoff later, right? Cause and effect. Okay, so if she was with a reporter to learn from him, she fell in love with him, obviously, but they were like oil and water. Or maybe he was angry that she was letting him go because she thought she had all she needed from him. Or maybe he had some character flaw. Either way, the bottom line is, maybe she was a little codependent because she needed that partnership and she wanted to, leverage it to get somewhere. Now she's here by extreme circumstance, and she's like, maybe he is still alive when she gets there. And she still gets that piece of information that goes back to who was really, behind all this.
Right.
Um,
Like his dying word is, this is
mhm.
who's behind this.
Exactly. That sort of thing. Or some clue that, gets her to the next thing that does reveal that pretty quickly thereafter. Now, getting to him is going to be like, if the guy's torturing him or the people that's been following her and prodding her, chasing her, damn near killing her along this story are doing this, then it's not going to be easy for her to get to. And, it's, she's not like a super fighter type of thing. If she is, we'd have to set that up back in Act 1,
I
right?
don't even think they need to actually. Here's where
Ma-
my brain is going. So
Okay.
I picture this like very Times Square kind of thing.
Mhm.
So she's like, okay, this is who it is. I got it. So then she finds out that the antidote for the virus is taking care of it. And so that's all over the news. She goes back to her competition at the news station, tells her, gives the story away. You know what I mean? Like, this is who it is. We need to expose him. And then our protagonist is like just following the bad guy around. He's like in Times Square for some reason, and then like all of a sudden he's surrounded by his image and this news story about him being this bad person.
See, you
And
beat me
it's
to the punch because that's exactly what I was thinking, but in
yeah,
a slightly different thing. Somehow, I mean, the question is where the SD card is from our midpoint in Act 2,
yeah. I think
right?
she probably left it with the news station, or maybe she didn't. I don't know.
Well, yeah, she left it there, but she goes back. The maybe her sidekick is driving her back to the competition. It's like, her boyfriend is truly dead. Um, and maybe that last word from him is that, the recording was with that CEO second in command at that company we mentioned in Act 2,
Right,
right? And set
right.
up in Act 1. We have to set it up in Act 1. This is almost like Bill and Ted. It's like, remember the trash can.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay. So the SD card, it may have established the virus, but maybe you know, so because that had to have triggered the whole virus thing, right?
right.
And so, but where it was left and ended up, if it is at the news station, like you're thinking, great, because then it's there. Sidekicks takes her back to the competing news station, and she's like, she finds the SD card and like, wonder if this thing still has a virus on it or whatever. It's like, don't want to put it in, but he mentioned a recording, right? There's still a recording on it.
Yes.
So the recording on it has, some sort of, video feed with that second in command, and his detail of that plan for how they're going to pull things off. And she literally walks in disheveled, and she's probably been through hell, obviously. So she's going to look a little like she's been through hell, right?
Yes.
While they're in the middle of their live broadcast, she just walks in, gets behind the counter, and has her sidekick cue up the SD card with the video recording and just, ad hoc live, calmly and collectively delivers like an anchor person, her findings and exposes it. And here's my proof. And here's the recording. Now we have a rising action. We have a climax that's kind of like almost non-actiony in a way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'd have to have a tiny bit of an action thing. So she's successful. She's had this lightning, rod of a story. What if she's had one last, maybe that's the rising action. The climax may be, your actual like, maybe that second in command. Because when she finds her reporter boyfriend and he's near death and then dies, no one's around to be found. Maybe that allows, they just left him for dead, right? So, but that person that was torturing him and calling her, she hadn't found him yet. So maybe the second in command and that guy square off with her. Maybe it's a chase somehow in a news van, and they're coming after her, and ends with some sort of car accident where the bad guys die because they managed to outmaneuver them. Something like that, which was almost kind of like cheesy, but
Well, I was actually thinking like the simplest idea, right? So
mm-hmm,
if you're having a chase,
mm-hmm.
what would happen if the police just interrupted the chase and pulled them over or like, got the tire strips out or something like that. You know what I mean? Like take
Right.
the chase equation out of it.
Well, remember it's an action movie. So
Yeah.
we'd have to have you do have to have some action set pieces because it's different if it's like a standoff or something like that, then because that's suspense, that sort of thing. And maybe it's not a chase. It doesn't have to be, but some sort of action sequence. Doesn't have to be a fight
Oh,
because we haven't
I got
established
it.
her. What do you got? What do you got?
Okay. So the antagonist and the second in charge are trying to get out of the country or trying to escape via
Mhm.
the airport. Um, I don't know how she found Zide about it, but she does, and she gets there and she actually secretly plants something on them, so when they're going through security, they get stopped.
Hmm. You know what? There is a way we can make that work. If she leaves the desk after she delivers the message and goes like, and grabs her sidekick and said, you know, and I don't know why they'd be at a competing news station at this point. Maybe it's just a competing team at the same news station. That way it's not, confusing, but, we'd have to go back and, make it figure that out along the last two acts. But, maybe that as she leaves after she, drops the mic, so to speak, um, with this story, drops this bombshell, and she grabs the sidekick and say, "Get your news van. Let's go report. Let's go ask
Yeah,
the guy
let's
some
go
questions.
finish the story.
Let's finish the story."
Yeah.
Exactly. So they go and they see that he's leaving and heading toward the airport. So they decide to chase after him. She's like,
It's
keep
like a
on him.
chase in reverse.
It's a chase in reverse because they're
Yeah.
chasing him and he's
Right.
trying to get away at a private airport. Somehow the
Right.
cops are like, "Get out of the way. We're trying to arrest him. You've
Right.
done your job." And she's still like, she may still be chasing the story, but she's not really chasing the story. She's trying to
She's trying to get him.
yeah, exactly. So maybe she's in a way, she's like, okay, we may not get the story, but let's get him. Let's help them because they may be, slippery at getting out of the way and they're still able to, follow them or corner them somehow and then let the police surround them. And then how about a denouement? What do you think? Like next day, a week, or a month from now?
Yeah, I think it's like maybe. So this is where my mind goes. It's like, you know, 2 weeks later, and you see her like barfing in the bathroom, and all of a sudden she looks at the counter, and the pregnancy test strip is positive.
I don't know about that.
But see, that's me. That's where I go because it's a girl story, and it's an action movie. But you're like, oh, so she's not going to be alone. She's going to have a baby.
Well, the point was for her to stand on her own, right?
Yeah, all right, fine. So
Well, maybe she's getting her. Maybe she's there with her sidekick, who happens to be her cameraman, and she's outside the courthouse, and she's delivering her story of like, as we're further investigating or working with investigators, or just maybe she's starting the beginning, like she's on camera about to deliver like broadcast speech, and she's like, and the courthouse inside, they're waiting for they're talking about the indictment of the people involved with the company, that second in command of the CEO, that sort of stuff, the chief technical officer or technology officer.
yeah, what about if the competition
Mm-hmm.
gave her like some sort of nod,
Right,
like
or
what I mean?
something.
Because that would be her win.
Well, yeah, she's reporting on the indictment or whatever, the judgment passed on in the case of
Right.
this because then we don't have to say how many weeks later, because we know if the guy was arrested and there's evidence in this charge, is like, and there's a couple of different ways this could play out. It'd be like Shaft or Eraser, where the guys get away with it, but somebody and they get their comeuppance some other way. Or the point is that she would be shown standing on her own, delivering the story.
Yes.
And maybe there's a nod to her reporter in some way, some sort of visual element where she can say, "Yeah, this one's for you." That sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think that wraps up everything. That's your resolution, is that she learned that even through all this horrible these horrible events, she was actually learned to stand on her own, that she could do it.
Exactly. Now, of course, we'd have to make sure that's set up in Act One, because right now what we've got is a lot of pieces that are starting to come into a cohesive
Yeah.
focus, but just barely. We've got we'd still have some work to do.
Well, I mean, it is just an outline, basically.
Right. And
But
not
hey,
bad for like how much
I
time there was.
know that was 49 minutes
Yeah.
total. So
Instant story. Just add, chuckles.
yes, I believe so. um, but I mean, this is only one way to go about it. Like I've done it with post-it notes. I just told this to somebody I work with. Post-it notes on a refrigerator. So every time you have an idea, you take a post-it, you write it on a post-it note and stick it on your refrigerator. It is the most used location in your house. So you can start to formulate your story with the post-it notes on your refrigerator. So it's
It's
not such a big idea. It's little ideas.
right. It's like the index card method that
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
a lot of people like to go toward and move around, because I mean, if film is a visual process, you want to have a visual way to move your scenes around pretty
Yeah,
easily. There's software that exists that can do similar things.
right. And I
But
have a list, but I just wanted to say, like, we are not sponsored by any of these companies, but we could be, so call us. Um, so,
please.
Writer Duet, which is actually one that I've used. Squibbler, Final Draft, the new version has some really cool features about
Yeah.
collaboration. Um, I don't know how to say this one. Is it
Celtics
Celtics?
or
Like
Celtex, I think.
the Boston Celtics? Okay.
Something.
Scrivener, and the first screenwriting program I ever purchased was Movie Magic Screenwriter.
You
Um,
and you and me both. Quick
yeah.
story on that. The day I bought my first copy of it was the day of 9/11, actually the morning
Oh
of,
wow.
which
Wow.
was messed up because I was literally trying to put in the order. I hadn't seen a thing about the Twin Towers yet. Finished the order, got off the phone with a guy, but then turned around and then in on a TV in the area I was working in had it. And then all of a sudden the rest of that day, none of anything else mattered, of course.
Mattered, right?
So that's interesting. But years later in the program that you and I were in, I switched to Final Draft because it was a pain getting from Movie Magic Screenwriter to Word, which is how
Yes.
we had to export for the program we were in.
Right.
And Screenwriter can't export to Word from its internal software to Word, but you have all this reformatting you have to do, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just been enjoying the new version of Screenwriter of Final Draft. Yeah.
Me too. I love their features. And anytime that I go to the Austin Film Festival every year, except last year, obviously I went virtually, pandemic notwithstanding, and they're always there. They always have a booth and they're such nice people. I've met the people who create the training videos for if you want to learn how to do something in Screenwriter for the new
And
features.
I mean, again, not sponsored by them, but I will tell you their customer service and tech support online is amazing. Like, I have had some weird issues, like uh, half my file didn't save, and they're like, "Well, let
Wow.
me just tell you where it is." So, yeah, I mean, they've been great, really great, and weird questions like, "Why did my file go from 300% to 100, on the image on the screen?" And they'll talk you through everything. It's great.
Yeah. I will say that Writer Duet interests me because it really is one of those tools where you and another person get into the same interface.
Same interface at the same time, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of like where you and I are in a situation where we're in different parts of the country,
Mm-hmm.
and we could get into this software and continue with this story if we wanted to go back and forth with different things
Right.
in a way that's not all that different from, like, I'd write one version of like a scene in Final Draft and send it to you. We'd still be emailing each other back and forth or using some other like connected kind of software out there. I've heard of stuff like there's Slack, there's Microsoft Teams, which makes sense for a corporate environment, but for
Right.
writers, maybe Writer Duet makes a little bit more sense only because it's built for screenwriters. So
Right. And I will say that if you are thinking about venturing into this collaboration world, which I think you should try at least once,
Hmm.
because it really does bring out a different part of your brain and a different part of your craft. Um, get everything in writing. Like,
Yes,
even
up
if it's
front.
your friends, it doesn't matter. Get
Hmm.
everything in writing. If you check out, there's this guy, his name is James A. Conrad. He's a co author of the Filmmaker's Dictionary. He has a really great website. I'm putting up his website right now, and he offers free um, agreement forms and other useful forms and tools, all for free. Um, he said that if you use it and it protects you, just share that you used it from me. That's all he wants. So, but yeah, he's got some really great stuff on his website. I would check it out. I've used his agreements before just because they are worded really specifically.
He's
So
probably got the good legal jargon down, which is it's
yeah.
it's great that there are these resources. Even if you're not a WGA member, you can go to them and get similar legal forms. There's plenty of online resources for a lot of that stuff, for boilerplate material that
Hmm.
someone's put out there and made available for you. There's good ones for filmmakers too. If you don't have access to, not all of us have access to legal assistance and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's
And just
these.
it's like registering your script. This is the same thing. You're protecting yourself and your work.
Exactly, exactly. And find some way to do that, whether you're talking in anything in filmmaking, whether we're talking
Right.
about screenwriting or any other department, just, you know, you know, God is love and all that, but,
Right.
and God loves you when you're making films, but get it in writing.
Get it in writing. Absolutely. 100%.
And you can
Uh,
quote me on that entire last statement if you want.
I would, but I can't right now.
That's fine by me. So I wanted to mention one other thing about teams and
Yes.
stuff like that, because that's the theme of our episode here. I remember. Do you remember in the MFA program we were in, there was like a one clip video about a team and how they structure their day and they're working on, like, they work every day, and on Fridays they finish early so they can have margaritas in the afternoon. It was these two ladies, and they wrote some big films. I want to say it was God, I want to say it was a movie like Pitch Perfect or Legally Blonde, but I'm probably wrong on that. But it was a two lady writers,
Hmm.
and I looked at what they were doing, and there were some folks I know that looked at that and be like, okay, well, yeah, is that the way that all writers should? Well, it's the way they do, but it's a really cool idea. It's like having ideas about having end goals and the way you structure your work, treat it like a job, but also have that moment where you can vent and blow off steam. So
Right.
and that's what I thought was so cool about that. They had a way to, they had a working relationship established. They had, a great way to, enjoy each other's company. Because if you're going to work together, hope to God you enjoy each other's company.
Right. And you have to. It's if you're holding contempt for your writing partners, you're never going to get anything done.
Well, and at that point, you would pretty much end the partnership.
Right.
And because, I mean, you look at guys like, is it Stephen McFeely and Chris Marcus, the writing team that's been big on the last couple of Marvel movies? They had a gargantuan task where there's a lot of pressure, a lot of money. I mean, Hollywood is already a high stakes gambling casino, but to work on something that big with that much pressure and that many eyes and that much money, you got to have somebody with you. I mean, facing that alone sucks, but you also got to have one where you've got all this established, where you guys are strong enough together so you don't have to feel like you have to go it alone.
And that actually is a really great segue because we can't do what we do alone and we want to hear from you. So,
Yes, please.
so please, like, we're going to get back to our normally broadcast show eventually. So keep on sending in your log lines. We've actually received a few we're going to use for our next round of Logline Thunderdome. Send us show
Yes.
ideas, guest ideas, questions, comments. Like, you can tell Chris to like not talk so much. That's okay by me. Oh, dang.
Oh,
Uh,
damn.
joking, joking. Definitely follow us on Facebook. We're on Twitter at Telling the Show, or you can actually email us like it sounds so old fashioned. Like, just email us. tellingtheshow@gmail.com. And we are now on LinkedIn. So come find us, follow us, add us as a contact at Telling the Show.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Now, some departing words of wisdom. May I take this one, please?
Please do.
Absolutely. Collaboration on a film script involves two people sitting in a room separated by the silence of two minds working together. We're quoting Darlene Craviotto. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing
Oh,
your last
wow.
name.
I like that, even with the accent. Well, so fancy.
That was an accent. I can't even roll my R's with my tongue at all. And if I delivered that well enough, that just means I spend too much time listening to the sound of my own voice and loving it. It's not just a summer thing.
It was a fast relationship.
Wow. That's two. I mean, I swear, if y'all have a problem with me talking, she's gonna check my ego at the door there for me. So don't you worry. And if you do have a problem with it, I don't. It's no problem. I apologize for it. I can only apologize so much, and I will grovel while I try my next career in ASMR.
Well, dude, I think we had another really great week.
Yeah, I think this is hopefully it's a helpful episode for people out there in trying the writing partner stuff. I would look out there for like writing partner exercises, that sort of thing. That's something I think we can look into for the next episodes, like quick exercises. How do you start an idea? How do you start one off? How do you start how do you keep it going? How do you engage each other? That sort of thing. There's plenty of stuff out there. And we'll try to bring what we find to you. If you find something, if you guys out there have something, you know how to get a hold of us. Denise has told you every way you can get a hold of us. And if you have some ideas that you'd like us to, share out with the rest of the world, new, bold, fresh ideas about how to make collaborations and writing partnerships work, please let us know.
Yes, I agree.
Well, on that note,
it's
that happy, cheerful note. It's like, thank you for spending an hour and 10 minutes of your life with us. Hope it's been beneficial for you.
Be safe out there.
Please.
And, keep on writing.
Please keep writing.
Yeah. All right. Until the next time. Good night from me.
Good night from me as well. You've been listening to Telling the Show.